It's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Thomas Leppard, until very recently a doctoral student at the Tchaikovsky Institute for Archaeology in the Ancient World at Brown University. And he's going to talk to us, well, actually, I think he's just going to demonstrate that archaeology often involves a lot of destruction. Tom, tell us a secret about why you work in a place like this.
Well, Montserrat has one secret, one big secret. Mm-hmm. It has a volcano.
That's not entirely a secret, but continue, yes.
It's a small island in the Caribbean, in the Lesser Antilles.
Uh-huh.
And in 1995, a volcano erupted in the southern half of the island. And this has impacted how people live on the island.
Good Lord.
And also caused us to start doing some archaeological research there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In particular, we've been interested in looking at the north half of the island. When the volcano went off, a large portion of the population relocated to the north and started building new infrastructure, new roads, new airports, and that sort of thing.
I see. So the volcano's down in the south and...
Yeah, the volcano's in the southern half of the island, which is now inaccessible. And so what we wanted to do was first we wanted to take research on Montserrat's past in diachronic, long-term perspective, but also to help the government, help the people of Montserrat by recording their cultural heritage and their historic landscapes before they're destroyed by this new infrastructure.
So this is basically rescue archaeology. This isn't that you guys said, I have a research question about, northern Montserrat. It was more in response to this ecological crisis?
Part research archaeology, but part rescue archaeology in that sense. And I think they mesh more comfortably than might seem obvious.
Yeah, actually, no, that's something I've found increasingly at Petra as well, that divide, is and I think that's a divide that we have to break down. Okay, so you're telling me that you're doing good for mankind by working in the Caribbean.
Yes. It's very tough to work in the Caribbean.
Glad to hear it. All right. So, how do you get down to Montserrat?
Well, it's a tiny island in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
So first of all, fly to Antigua,
yep.
One of the larger islands in the Lesser Antilles, and then take a small and increasingly dangerous plane with 8 seats and land in the tiny airport of Montserrat, which is surrounded by ravines on both sides.
Charming.
I'm glad
to hear it. And you have to take all your field gear on the tiny little plane.
We do, and we load our field gear onto the tiny little plane. If the back end of the tiny little plane gets low enough, then we don't take the field gear, and that comes across in a separate tiny little plane.
I'm glad to hear that. Where do you stay on this island? To describe, looking at the map of the island, tell us, how much you can get to and how much you can't, and where do you guys sleep at night?
Well, essentially, the southern half of the island between the Belem Valley and Trance is now largely inaccessible.
Okay.
But before the volcano went off, Montserrat had a thriving tourist industry. So on the western coast of the island, there are a number of large abandoned villas with swimming pools and gorgeous sea views. And unfortunately, we have to stay in one of those.
Life is tough. No, but Montserrat, it's like I've heard something in the past about that place. There was a recording studio, right?
Air Studios, owned by Sir George Martin, the Beatles producer. And luminaries such as Sting and also the Rolling Stones recorded there. And that is now in the exclusion zone under about 2.5 foot of ash.
Oh, my heavens. Okay. But I thought you guys did some archaeology there.
We did. Our interests, as I said, are diachronic and range from the very early colonization of Montserrat, from around 2000 BC.
2000 BC.
Right through to the contemporary, the volcanic past, as it were.
So you dug through that much ash to get to the recording studio?
We troweled back ash and found the artists, when they recorded at Air Studios, tended to write their names in wet concrete, do handprints, like the Hollywood stuff. So we excavated the ash back and found Sting's handprint.